So in Spanish, nouns have gender, adjectives come after nouns, highly inflected. You can put no before a verb to negate it. Double negatives make sense in Spanish where they don't make sense in English. There is no possessive nouns. The word de is used to help show possession. For example, Lila's book would be el libro de Lila. The verb tener, or to have, has multiple meanings, and there are infinitive verbs with 3 endings, AR, ER, and IR. There are 5 simple rules to build basic Spanish sentences. The first one is that every Spanish sentence needs a subject and a verb. The second rule is adjectives come after the nouns in Spanish sentences. This is where there can be the most mistakes. If we want to say long hair, we'd say pelo largo, which literally means hair long. The adjectives also must agree. If the noun is plural, then the adjective needs to be plural too. Adverbs function in Spanish just as they do in English. The adverbs are used to describe verbs. In order to make an adverb, you add mente to the end of the adjective, which is similar to the addition of the adding ly in English. Adverbs do not convey gender, and there are a few adverbs that don't follow the mente rule, like bueno and malo. The fourth rule is to make a Spanish sentence negative. Like we said before, you add no before the verb. It is possible in Spanish to use the double negatives. And the fifth rule is there are 3 ways to make questions in Spanish. In Spanish, like we said before, there is an upside down question mark at the beginning of the question. The first way to create a question is to switch the verb and the subject. The second way would be to add a question mark to a statement in writing and raising your intonation when speaking it. And the third way is to add question tags. So you say a normal sentence and then add a question word at the end of a sentence. Semantics deals with the meaning of words. In the Spanish language, there are regionalisms, words that are used mainly in certain geographical areas or countries. There are many false friends between Spanish and English as well. These are words that are similar in form in both languages, but they represent different meanings. And you can see the example on the screen. Pragmatics is how meaning is conveyed through communication. Conversations may be initiated on a personal note as a way of showing that they care. Spanish-speaking people use gestures a lot to help them communicate, and they interact verbally more with peers than they do adults for students, and they usually do not interrupt adults when they are talking.
In the Spanish culture, it is common for men and women to shake hands when they first meet. As they build on their relationship, it becomes very custom for individuals to hug or kiss when greeting one another. Hispanic children are raised to understand that looking an adult in the eye can be viewed as challenging their authority. To show respect, children are taught that they should avoid eye contact when speaking with adults. Men and women have different greetings when they are greeting individuals of the same gender compared to greeting individuals of the opposite gender. For example, when women are meeting other women, they will oftentimes kiss each other on the cheek, first starting with the left cheek, whereas men greeting other men will first start with a handshake, and when they've built up more of a relationship, they will hug one another. Children also know that they do not have a place in adult conversation. This is a sign of disrespect when holding a discussion. It is also a sign of respect to not interrupt adults as they are speaking. In the Hispanic culture, it's very common for children to learn how to communicate through hand gestures and motions while they are learning the words to correlate with these emotions, items, and ideas. A lot of communicating in the Spanish culture is nonverbal. This is instilled from an early age. Children are raised to know that interrupting, once again, is a sign of disrespect. It is also not appropriate for children to be involved in adult conversation, whether they are in public, at home, or in a school setting. In the Hispanic culture, it is very common for children to learn how to communicate through hand gestures and motions while they're learning the words to correlate A lot of the communicating in Spanish sorry, I was on the wrong slide. Traditionally, women are known to be the homemakers in a Hispanic family. This is slowly changing in areas closer to cities throughout, though. Families that are located out in the farmland or in more rural locations tend to still have women run the household. It is very important that children know their role in the family. They are there to support their elders and must show respect at all times. Family bond is extremely important, so much so that if a child needs to drop out of school to help support the family, they will do so. It is not uncommon for extended families to share a house and for extended families to financially support one another. Students whose native language is not English don't automatically realize how much English depends on word order for meaning. English is a subject, verb, object language. It is important when teaching ELs that we take into account that English is not an easy language to master due to the intense amount of rules and structure that there is. On top of this, students' cultures could affect their effective filter as well. Hispanic students know that their family has high expectations for their child's education. One cultural impact that could affect the classroom is the fact that Spanish families raise their children to respect adults. Sometimes this respect means not looking an adult directly in the eye. This could be controversial in a classroom in the US because avoiding eye contact here can be seen as a sign of disrespect. Another cultural impact that could affect a student within the classroom is the fact that Spanish families tend to be more comfortable with close contact with other individuals. In the English culture, that is not always the case, especially in a school setting, it is normally frowned upon. When working with any ELs in the classroom, it is important to remember that they are being thrown into a class where the language that is being used to them is foreign. They are not only learning language, but also at the same time, they're learning the content that's being taught. In order to best support ELs, no matter what their L1 is, it is important to provide visual representations, allow for students to work in groups, or at least have a turn and talk to help boost participation. You should also provide materials in the student's home language whenever possible, preview materials for any cultural bias in the lesson, and pre-teach whenever possible. It is also important to realize that if you need to meet with a Hispanic family about academic testing due to concerns such as special needs, IEPs, or 504s, that families may not be thrilled to be at this meeting. It is not part of their culture to accept these learning disabilities at first. Once students have finished their middle school years, they are also given 3 choices of what steps they would like to take. The first step is to enter the workforce. The second step is to go into further education via high school, or the third step is to embark on vocational training. When interacting with Hispanic families, it is best not to assume familial roles. Oftentimes, children live with their grandparents and may call them mom or dad. Try and keep the meeting as label-free as possible. Families will do whatever it takes to support their children, so it is important to include them in on all things that are going on in the school. Do not wait until things have boiled over to call home. You should reach out to families at the first sign of concern so that they can support their child at home. Understand that you may not see eye to eye at all times, but it is important to show families how much you respect them. It is also important to be aware that some families may shy away from any school setting related to language barriers. You should provide a translator whenever possible that speaks their home language. This will ease a lot of stress and tension that parents or guardians may feel when they walk into a school.
Here is a list of some of our references, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation.